The winds that sweep across the harbor of Kinsale in County Cork carry many stories. Sailors speak of strange cries heard at night. Guards once stationed on the ancient walls reported seeing a pale woman wandering beneath the moonlight. Visitors claim to feel an overwhelming sadness near the old fortress long after sunset. Many believe these experiences are connected to one of Ireland's most famous ghosts, the White Lady of Charles Fort. Standing proudly above Kinsale Harbor, Charles Fort is one of the largest military fortifications in Ireland. Built in the late 17th century after the Williamite War, the star-shaped fortress was designed to defend the coastline from invading forces. Thick stone walls, underground tunnels, gun batteries, and dark passageways transformed the fort into an imposing symbol of military power. But beneath its stone foundations lies a tragic tale that has endured for centuries. The legend begins with a beautiful young woman named Wilful Kate. She was the daughter of a commanding officer stationed at Charles Fort. Known throughout the area for her beauty and kind nature, Kate quickly became admired by both soldiers and townspeople. During her time at the fort, she fell deeply in love with a young officer stationed there. Their romance blossomed within the shadow of the fortress walls. As months passed, their affection grew stronger until they eventually became engaged. The entire garrison celebrated the upcoming marriage. According to local folklore, the wedding was a magnificent event. Officers, soldiers, and local dignitaries gathered within the fort. Music echoed through the stone courtyards. Candles illuminated the barracks. Wine flowed freely as guests danced late into the evening. For Kate, it was the happiest day of her life. After hours of celebration, the newly married couple retired to their quarters. Outside, the night was calm and peaceful. The stars shone above Kinsale Harbor while the sea gently lapped against the shoreline far below. But tragedy was already approaching. The young officer was scheduled for guard duty that very night. Despite exhaustion from the wedding festivities, military regulations demanded that he report for his post. Determined to fulfill his responsibilities, he kissed his bride goodnight and took his position on the fortress walls. As the hours passed, fatigue overwhelmed him. Some versions of the story claim he sat briefly to rest. Others suggest he leaned against a stone wall while watching the darkness beyond the fort. Whatever happened, the result was the same. The young officer fell asleep while on duty. In a military fortress, such negligence was considered a serious offense. Fate intervened in the cruelest possible way. Late that night, a senior officer conducted a surprise inspection of the guard posts. Upon discovering the sleeping sentry, he immediately drew his weapon. Without hesitation, he fired. The gunshot shattered the silence of the harbor. The young officer collapsed onto the cold stone ground, mortally wounded. Inside the nearby quarters, Kate awoke to the sound. Terrified, she rushed outside into the darkness. Soldiers were already gathering near the walls. Lanterns flickered as confusion spread throughout the fort. Pushing through the crowd, Kate reached the scene. There, lying motionless beneath the moonlight, was her husband. The man she had married only hours earlier was dead. Witnesses later described her scream as one of the most heartbreaking sounds ever heard within Charles Fort. Consumed by grief and unable to comprehend the tragedy, Kate wandered through the fortress in shock. For days she refused food. She barely spoke. Friends and family attempted to comfort her, but her sorrow seemed beyond healing. Each day she reportedly walked the same route through the fort, retracing the final moments of her husband's life. Soldiers watched helplessly as her condition worsened. Then one morning she disappeared. Search parties spread across the fortress and surrounding grounds. Eventually they discovered the terrible truth. Kate's body was found at the base of the fortress walls. According to legend, she had thrown herself from the ramparts overlooking the harbor. The tragedy stunned the entire garrison. Both newlyweds were buried, but many believed their story had not truly ended. Soon after Kate's death, strange events began to occur. Night guards reported seeing a woman dressed entirely in white walking silently along the walls. At first, commanders dismissed these sightings as imagination. But reports continued. The mysterious figure appeared near the same locations connected to the tragedy. Witnesses described her moving gracefully through the darkness before suddenly vanishing into thin air. Some soldiers followed her only to discover empty corridors. Others claimed she passed directly through locked gates. Years turned into decades. Decades became centuries. Yet the sightings never completely stopped. Visitors arriving at Charles Fort during the 19th century frequently heard local residents speak of the White Lady. Many described seeing her near sunset. Others encountered her after midnight when the fort was quiet and deserted. One particularly unsettling account involved a soldier who reportedly attempted to speak with the ghost. Believing she was a real woman wandering the grounds, he approached her. The figure turned slowly toward him. Witnesses later claimed her face appeared filled with unimaginable sadness. Before the soldier could say another word, she disappeared before his eyes. The terrified man never returned to that section of the fort alone. Throughout the 20th century, paranormal investigators became fascinated by the legend. Several visitors reported sudden drops in temperature around specific parts of the fortress. Others claimed to hear distant crying carried by the wind. Photographers occasionally captured unexplained anomalies in areas associated with the White Lady. Even more disturbing are reports from people who knew nothing about the story before visiting. Some described encountering a lonely woman dressed in white wandering the grounds. Only afterward did they learn about the centuries-old legend. Today, Charles Fort remains one of Ireland's most famous haunted locations. Tourists arrive from around the world to explore its massive walls and learn about its rich military history. Many come specifically hoping to witness evidence of the White Lady. As darkness falls over Kinsale Harbor, the atmosphere changes dramatically. The cheerful sounds of daytime visitors fade away. Cold sea winds whistle through empty passageways. Long shadows stretch across ancient stone walls. The fortress begins to feel less like a historical monument and more like a place trapped between worlds. Some believe the White Lady continues her endless search for the husband she lost on her wedding night. Others think her spirit remains bound to the location by overwhelming grief. Skeptics argue that the story is merely folklore passed from generation to generation. Yet countless visitors continue to report strange experiences. And perhaps that is what makes the legend so terrifying. Unlike tales of violent monsters or vengeful spirits, the horror of Charles Fort lies in its sadness. A single moment changed 2 lives forever. A wedding became a funeral. A night of celebration became a nightmare. And according to legend, the sorrow of that tragedy still lingers within the ancient walls. So if you ever visit Charles Fort after sunset and notice a pale woman standing silently upon the ramparts overlooking the harbor, be careful. Do not follow her. Do not call out to her. Because some say the White Lady is still walking those walls. Still searching. Still grieving. And still waiting in the darkness.